Hello. Before we begin, a quick note. The Boy to Sleep podcast relies on you and sponsors, which means you will hear a quick advertisement before the beginning of tonight's episode. While the podcast is free, you are welcome to subscribe for just $2.99 per month, which supports the creation of this podcast and gives you an ad-free listening experience. Simply click the link in the show notes from your podcast app. Rest easy.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
Hello. Welcome to the Bore You to Sleep podcast. The podcast that will hopefully help you get to sleep. I am going to read an open source book, one that is not particularly interesting, but one that is hopefully boring enough to get you to sleep. Tonight's reading comes from The Basic Facts of Economics, written by Lewis F. Post and published in 1927. This story looks at the interesting world of money and economics. My name is Teddy, and I aim to help people everywhere get a good night's rest. Sleep is so important, and my mission is to help you get the rest that you need. The podcast is designed to play in the background while you slowly fall asleep. For those of you who don't know, this podcast was originally created because I had my own issues with sleep. I wanted to bring another resource to people out there who may have similar issues to my own. I am grateful that the podcast has grown to be such an amazing community. The podcast is self-made and self-produced, which is why you will hear a quick ad at the beginning of each episode. With the help of subscribers and Patreon sponsors, I am able to keep delivering this podcast for free to those who need it. Thank you to everybody who shared their words of gratitude with me during the week, whether it be through the website or your podcast app. A massive thank you to the new subscribers via Spotify for podcasters, and thank you to all of the existing subscribers and Patreon sponsors. Thank you, Chad, for your lovely message through the website and for being a long-time listener. Thank you to all Spotify listeners who took the time to leave a response in the Spotify episode's Q&A. Your responses in Spotify are very helpful, and it is why I publish them right away to say thank you. On recent episodes, thank you to Joe Woodhouse, BJ Robbo, and Zai. Thank you for each of your lovely responses. It really helps get the podcast out there, and is a great way to let others know that you are listening. If you're out there and you find the podcast beneficial and would like to support the podcast in some way, there are a few ways you can contribute. Be sure, of course, to follow the podcast in your podcast app. Of course, you are welcome to become a subscriber for $2.99 per month, which will ensure the removal of any Spotify ads at the beginning of the episode. Whichever podcast app you're in right now, to become a subscriber, simply click on the show notes in the podcast. If that is not possible, and I completely appreciate that not everyone is in a position to do that, a simple way to support the podcast is simply by following the podcast in your podcast app, leaving a review and rating. Even one sentence really helps out. My goal is to continue bringing out this podcast for free for everybody out there who needs it. And it is these ways that you can help to keep that dream going. And finally, you are always welcome to reach out to me at boyytosleep.com. You can send a message through the website, and I will always come back to you. I'm appreciative of hearing from all listeners, wherever you are in the world. In the meantime, lie back, relax, and enjoy the readings. The Basic Facts of Economics, a Common Sense Primer for Advanced Students, by Lewis F. Post. First Lesson, Economics. On the surface, economics appears to be the science of making money. This appearance is due, however, to a careless recognition and erroneous application of the fact that economic accomplishments are measured by money standards and expressed in money terms. When, for example, a builder builds, he builds to make money. Money measures the economic extent of what he is doing, and money terms express its economic desirability. They also express and measure his motive, which is the compensation he can command in the currents of trade. A merchant makes money when he manages a profitable business. So does a manufacturer. Farmers make money when they sell their produce profitably, nor only when they sell it, but also while they cultivate it, for every day's growth adds to the money measurement of a crop. Wage workers by the day, the week or month, the salary workers by the year, also workers on commission or for percentages or for profits, make more or less money as working opportunities are more or less plentiful, and wages or salaries or percentage tools and profit totals are consequently higher or lower. Engineers, lawyers, physicians, architects, dentists, clergymen, teachers, all professional workers make money to the extent of the marketability of the services they offer. And investors, do they not invest by money measurements and in money terms, for the purpose of obtaining economic incomes measured by money and expressed in terms of money? Manifestly, the immediate object of everybody's activity in the field of economics is to make money. Does one desire food? By making money he gets food. Does one desire clothing? He gets it by making money. Does he wish for housing, furnishings, automobiles, railway or steamboat transportation, necessaries of any kind, luxuries of whatever variety, household service, professional service, legislative or judicial service, mechanical service, mercantile service, clerical service? Does land ownership appeal to one? Let him make money, and he can buy land. Whatever object the economic field may offer for the satisfaction of human desires, that object is attainable by making money. In no other way can it be attained through economic processes. If gifts be cited as exceptions, let the fact be noted that giving is not an economic process. It lacks the element of exchange or trade, so too of theft in any of its forms. In genuine economics, there must be two gainers in every trade. There is no science as economics of the 40 thieves variety. Even in such seeming exceptions to the economic importance of money as are offered by barter, in which no money passes and no money accounting is made, comparisons of the objects thus directly exchanged are nevertheless contemplated by the exchangers in terms of money. The owner of a horse that might sell for $200 would not barter it for a horse that could sell for only $100, not unless he got boot enough to even up the money difference to his satisfaction. Nor would the boy with a $2 penknife swap even for a $1 jackknife. It is only when the two horses or the two knives seem to their respective owners to be approximately equal by money measurement that an even swap is conceivable. Another seeming exception to the money-making characteristic of economics depends upon individual isolation. That isolated individuals may gather food and improvise shelter and clothing without thinking of them in terms of money is true enough. But the activities of persons thus isolated are not economic exceptions, for the science of economics is a social science. Although some economic phases or phenomena may be picturesquely and aptly illustrated by reference to the experience, actual or imaginary, of isolated individuals like Robinson Crusoe on his island, states of human isolation are outside the limits of economics. Inasmuch, then, as the object of the human factor in the science of economics is to make money, and as there can be no science of economics without the human factor, economics is comprehensively and accurately definable, on the surface, as the science of making money. But making money in the economic sense must be distinguished from narrower uses of the phrase. To manufacture coins legitimately, as at a mint, is to make money, but only in one economic particular, only in the narrow mechanical sense in which weaving cloth is making cloth. Like weaving cloth, it is but an item in the multitudinous phenomena of that money-making which superficially defines the science of economics. The same observation is applicable to the occupations of engraving and of printing paper currency legitimately. Illegitimate makings of either paper currency or coin, like all other forms of forgery, are not in any sense making money within the purview of economic science. They are varieties of theft, and economic science excludes theft of every kind, even legal kinds. This exclusion is not for moral reasons. It may be well to interject for the benefit of such advanced students of economics as recoil from mixing moral principles with economic science. It is due to the fact that exchange or trade, an essential element in economics, is in theft utterly lacking. In the economic sense, making money is making it for all concerned in any particular process, and not for one or more of the parties at the expense of the others. No art of getting something for nothing can be within the scope of economic science. One-sided methods of making money, whether frankly labeled theft or gambling, or shrewdly disguised in spurious business ethics, are alien to economic money-making. Within the domain of economics, no money-making transaction belongs unless it involves the making of money by all parties to the transaction. To make money in that mutual sense is to augment the supply or the serviceableness of whatever commodities money terms may measure and express, and of the portions or shares of all who contribute to the augmentation. In phrasing more complete than that of making money, economics is the science of making money by earning it. Getting money without earning it is related to economics only in a science-disturbing sense. It disturbs the normal economic relations of effect to cause in the production and dissemination of humanly desirable objects. To realize the truth of that statement, the student need only momentarily conceive of theft as universal. Since universal theft as an economic phenomenon would be utterly destructive of normal economic relationships, of beneficial effects from normal causes, so must theft to any extent operate destructively to that extent. The only thinkable relation of theft to economics is analogous to the relation of murder to the human race. That economic study may comprise considerations of how to exclude stealing from economic customs does not go to prove that stealing is a factor in economic science. It goes no farther than to prove that stealing may become an economic parasite. Even as a parasite, stealing could hardly have wormed its way to the economic borderline, much less across it. But for a disposition among advanced students to confuse normal economic phenomena with arbitrary business customs. Business might indeed be the nearest approach to a synonym for economics. It would be an exact synonym, but for one variation. Whereas economics relates to a comprehensive social organism, which, notwithstanding scientific contentions to the contrary, is subject to natural laws of human associations, sequences of cause and effect. Business is but a limited collection of individual interests or private organizations that are influenced and largely governed by arbitrary customs. These customs may or may not be in harmony with the normal relations of cause and effect in economics. And as to each particular business, it is operated, as accountants frankly admit, only for the benefit of its proprietor. In some of its vulgar connotations, business might very well answer to the insolent definition that it consists in the adventures of sprightly gentlemen trying to sell nothing for something to other sprightly gentlemen who are trying to buy something for nothing. In so far, however, as that definition may be appropriate, it applies only to business abuses, not to business as a possible synonym for economics. It defines business only as theft might define morality. To be a closer synonym for economics, business must deserve a definition relating its customs to natural economic law, and extending its functions more completely to universal mutual service. Moreover, its definition must widen the business concept so as to include all kinds of such service. Business can no more exclude from its realm particular business specialties, though that can be customary, than it can include the operations of confidence men, as it's sometimes supposed to do. Its functions are not limited to commerce, nor to banking, nor to any other of those business specialties to which careless speech, and sometimes snobbish thought, tend to narrow the meaning of the word. Business is that function of social life which includes all serviceable specialties, such terms as commercial, mercantile, industrial, agriculture, labor, the professions, and so on, denominate specializations or sections of subsidiary departments of business not business as a whole. They are useful for subclassification, but like all subclassifications, whether in economics or in any other science, they are misleading when perverted into general terms for primary or fundamental or comprehensive categories. The term business, like the term economics, should include them all. Every kind of service necessitates busyness, and serviceable busyness, what is that but business? Considered comprehensively, then, and excluding parasitical adhesions, business might be, as some advanced students of economic phenomena suppose it to be, another name for economics. In the scholastic sense, economics is the more orthodox term. In the practical sense, business could better express the idea. Both terms might have practically the same meaning if considerately used. Honest business, inclusive of all serviceable activities, service for service, to adopt a phrase in definition of business, would be identical with economics. Either, like the other, may be described superficially as the process of the science of making money. Quite consistently with the foregoing survey, economics has been described as the science of mankind making a living. This definition too excludes the solitary life by limiting economic science to cooperative mankind. In other words, to economic association. It too identifies economics and legitimate business, for only through legitimate business activities can cooperative mankind make a living. It too excludes theft in all its forms and guises, for so much of a living as some may make by any kind of theft, others must lose as victims of theft. It too brings economics on the surface and the business on the surface, within the definition of the science of making money. For only by means of money measurements in money terms does or can mankind in the mass make its living. But making money is only a surface fact in economics. It is but a means to the end. By no possibility can it be rationally regarded as the ultimate object. The ultimate object of economics is earning the living that money will buy. Both the object and the method lie below the surface of making money. To economics, making money is somewhat as bookkeeping is to a commercial business. It is the surface expression of all underlying economic phenomena. Before those phenomena can be thoughtfully observed and studied, the relation to them of money-making must be keenly scrutinized and intelligently considered. Second lesson. What is money? And what are its functions? Money is the medium of trade, its denominations the language. Resting on the surface of economic phenomena, money and money, terms spread over the whole of the economic area. All subsurface phenomena in economics are measured in trade by money units. The details of trading transactions are discussed and recorded in money terms. Money terms vary with localities. In the United States, money talks in terms of dollars. In Great Britain, in terms of pounds sterling. In France, in terms of francs. In Germany, of marks. Elsewhere in local terms too numerous for other than encyclopedic description. But the value measurements that money makes of commodities in the processes of trade are everywhere, at any given time, practically the same. For lack of stability, those measurements do vary from time to time with confusing effect. To compare them with measuring rods for length, breadth, and thickness, it is as if yards, feet, and inches were constantly contracting and expanding, with reference not only to the magnitude of measurable objects, but also to one another. Precisely in that way does money in fact fluctuate. It always has, and unless scientifically standardized, it always will. Nevertheless, whatever the fluctuations and local discrepancies of money may be, it everywhere talks. When its language is translated to the same general economic effect at any given time, stabilized as it might be, it would talk to the same general economic effect everywhere and all the time. What language is to thought, money terms are to trade. The trading transactions of the whole world are affected by means of money standards, and in the language of universally interpretable money terms. Conventionally defined, money consists of coins minted by governments from precious metals more or less alloyed. Those forms are supplemented, however, with subsidiary forms commonly known as currency. There is an economic theory that metal coins alone are money, paper currency being but promissory notes redeemable in coin. This theory is useful for testing money media by coinage standards, but with reference to nearly if not all purposes of current trade, the intrinsic value of the money piece is of slight economic importance, or would be if money were stabilized. What counts in economic measurements is money denominations, money language rather than money pieces, for in the worldwide processes of trade, only a slight proportion of either metal coin or paper currency passes from hand to hand. Nearly all money measurements are entered in books of account, and in these the debits and the credits so nearly offset one another, by and large, that the difference as a whole is too slight for consideration in passing down from the money surface of economics to the basic facts. A common and impressive exemplification is afforded by clearinghouse statistics. These show that the enormous banking transactions in money terms which merge at the clearings daily are balanced off with a trifling percentage of tangible money. Let the fact be emphasized then that in defining money as the medium of trade, money terms rather than money forms are to be understood as the trading medium. When a customer at a retail store buys a supply of groceries, his payment may be made in money pieces, either metal or paper. Yet it may be made instead with a check drawn against his bank balance, or through a charge to his account in the retailer's books. If paid in money pieces, either at the time of purchase or later, some, if not all those pieces, will go to the storekeeper's bank, and be credited to him in money terms on the books of the bank. If the payment be made by check, the amount of the check will be entered in the storekeeper's bank account, as if it were a payment in money pieces instead of money terms. Be such transactions as they may, however, cash payments or check payments or drafts or promissory notes, tangible money plays, on the whole, but a small part. From purchases by customers at retail stores back to wholesalers, back of wholesalers to manufacturers of finished products and of unfinished products, and of tools and of every other kind of merchantable object, back to landowners for the sources of supply and the sites for production and delivery, back to farmers, to miners, to transportation agencies, to a vast though scattered army of wage workers, through many a complicated series of accounts at stores, factories, mines, real estate offices, railway and steamship offices, banks, clearinghouses. Must we wend our way if we would investigate the processes of trade in detail? Yet only in slight degree do those processes involve the use of money forms. Though coinage standards play their part, almost all trading transactions are made in money terms and not with money pieces. In the process, then, of making a living, mankind trades commodities in terms of money rather than in its forms, doing so principally through financial accounts. Peering into the details of those accounts, as professional accountants and other business specialists must often do, when examining the particulars of their respective specialties. However useful this may be within the limits of the specialization, is always futile and often confusing or misleading for purposes of economic study or investigation as a whole. In economics, the purpose is not to understand the technical details of business specialties simply. It is chiefly to relate those details to one another by determining their respective economic categories, so that the whole subject may be reasoned with and about comprehensively. Some business specialties may necessitate a knowledge in detail of the physical characteristics of sugar, for instance, or of cotton, but what an understanding of the science of economics requires in such particulars is an intelligent grasp of the nature of sugar or cotton, with reference to fundamental economic categories, whether they are human or natural or artificial, and to what extent, therefore, they are economically related to all other commodities in the realm of trade. For into one or the other of those three categories, all the myriads of economic details assemble themselves. For purposes of economic specialization, this assignment of details to categories is not enough. But without it, no specialization is dependable. Some such identification of particular facts with reference to their fundamental differences or identities is absolutely necessary for accurate observation of economic phenomena and clearness of economic thought, and are not accurate observation and clarity of thought the prime requisites of economic study. Not to make those identifications and differentiations is to turn economics into the hopeless mixture of masses of particular, unexplained facts, which John Morley deplored as characteristic of a certain type of economic science. Scraps and pickings of reality are worse than useless in any study of economic science, unless harmoniously classified according to their respective fundamental characteristics. This comment does not mean that economic details are to be ignored, except for classification, even by non-specialists. Far from that, it means that they are to be thoughtfully considered and accurately classified for further and comparative consideration. To illustrate, mankind must be regarded as a class or category in economics, but not according to personal or individual capabilities, idiosyncrasies, or social, business, or legal status. To the business specialist, the personal qualities of an associate or assistant are important. But economics as a comprehensive science, the science of all mankind making a living, knows those special distinctions only in a secondary sense. It is concerned primarily with the individual man, only as a unit in the human mass, only for the fact that he is the human category, and not in one or more other economic categories. So of all economic facts, to study economic details without reference to economic generalizations might be likened to studying an alphabet without reference to language, or numerals without reference to mathematics. Economic problems are not problems of how one individual may make a living at the expense of others. Such problems belong in the plundering pursuits. In economics, the basic problem is how all make a living at the expense of none. To that problem, business details give no clue, unless the details be assigned to fundamental economic categories. Piling up details without assigning them is, as Henry James the Elder wisely expressed it, to sink the truth in endless confusion. The last person in all the world from whom to get the basic facts of economics is the business specialist, for he habitually limits his observations to his own specialty. Perhaps, however, a certain type of economic teacher may be equally untrustworthy in that respect. The teacher who, though he imitates the physical scientist in devotion to the details, disregards the physical scientist's fidelity to the relations of cause and effect. On the economic surface, we have the category of money. To the wage worker, money is the medium for trading the commodities he helps to produce for those he wishes to consume. To the merchant, however, or the manufacturer, or other economic specializer, money presents also a variety of minute details for expert study. The business accountant, for example, must familiarize himself with numerous details in connection with money, in its minute relationships to this specialty. He might very likely confuse facts economically different, yet as a special business matter practically identical. The money measurement of a natural mineral deposit, for instance, with the money measurement of its artificial equipment. And that concludes tonight's ratings. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this story about economics and money. If you're not quite tired yet, please feel free to listen to another episode of the Boy to Sleep podcast. Until next time, and good night.